Well, perhaps here's a moment where we can talk about some other stories, some of the things that are happening in the country right now. There was a stay granted yesterday on a federal court ruling has to do with the southern border. Now, look, everything now also has a bit of a Wuhan virus tie-in because everything is affected by this. And so we're talking about borders. We need secure borders. I think there's a greater understanding now of that than there has been in a long time, or at least there should be a greater understanding of that. I'm not sure that people have, no one changes their mind these days about anything, right? Now, you can never change your mind when new facts come in. That would be crazy. But there was a federal judge, this keeps happening, federal judge who told the Trump administration, no, you can't do that thing that you want to do. I as a federal judge, I'm going to say that that's not constitutional. That's illegal for some reason. Usually the fallback is the Administrative Procedure Act. They just come up with some twisted, just trying way too hard legalese to try and explain why we are where we are on all this stuff, right? So this is where you get finally the Supreme Court able to look at this and say, no, you got to let they've lifted the stay that stopped the Trump administration from implementing the Remain in Mexico program. The Remain in Mexico program is pretty straightforward. It was set up so that if you come to the U.S.-Mexico border and you claim asylum, you no longer get to just get released in the interior of the United States, because this was just a huge backdoor process to come into the country and break the law in doing so, showing up because the ports of entry, they tried to limit how many people were coming through the asylum process, the ports of entry. So what they would do is they would just come across the border illegally, get arrested, and then never show up for their court date, or if they do show up and they don't get asylum, they don't show up for their deportation hearing. There are all these levels that it moves through in which, and by the way, people lied about this. Oh my gosh, there were so many Democrats. Oh, they all show up at their meetings. They'll all show up at the court hearings, I promise. No, they didn't. Of course they didn't. They were never going to. We all knew that, but people lie while it was useful to them about this because there's a big ideological investment that the left has in being quasi-open borders, right? That's the real issue here. They don't want, it doesn't matter what the facts are, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. They are just going to always favor a policy that keeps us all with this open borders, de facto open border status, where if you show up, you get to just say, hey, I want to claim asylum, then you get released to the United States. So the Supreme Court said, no. They have to be able to continue the Remain in Mexico program because what it does, or the administration must be allowed to do this because what it does is it takes people and says, no, you have to wait in Mexico while your claim is adjudicated so you don't get to have this backdoor entrance to the United States. That's all it says. That's all the policy is. And I think there are 80,000 people already who, and guess what? Oh, what a surprise. All these people that were showing up saying, oh yeah, I want asylum. Not if they have to actually wait and show up in court and stay on the Mexico side of the border, because it was all a scam, and we knew it was a scam, and I told you it was, and we were right. Okay, so the Supreme Court, except for Sotomayor, who I think is clearly the least capable lawyer sitting on the Supreme Court, just based on her decisions, based on the way that she, the way that she asks questions, based on her judgment. I mean, as a judge, she's a deeply flawed and really subpar legal mind, and she, what she says, no, of course, because it's not a policy thing for her, right? She sees the Trump administration and says, you can't do this. You have no control over borders, even though you're the executive branch, you're the commander in chief. Not allowed. The other judges said, no, okay. You got to let the administration do this. This can't be the hashtag judiciary getting its way, because that's what they've been doing all along. They're trying to slow down the president, trying to prevent him from being able to do his job, use the powers that he has. And then you also get this update from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They say that at current deportation rates, it would take 140 years to remove all the illegal immigrants who came in during the border surge of the last 2 years. 140 years, folks. That's just for the people that came in the last 2 years. Never mind, the process, the speed with which we are able to generally deport people who are in the country illegally and who commit additional crimes, or who, for whatever reason, are higher up on the enforcement list. So they added 900,000 cases to ICE's non-detained docket. ICE's non-detained docket, according to the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, now has 3.3 million people in it. The number of illegal immigrants in the country is not 11 million, folks. It's 15 to 20 at least. At least. This is also why the government, which we see has plenty of problems in a lot of ways, the government never really wants to do a full and accurate count of this, because we'd find out that the government numbers have been wrong and that we've been lied to on this for a very, very long time. And now I have to say, we can't really talk about the coronavirus situation and we can't really talk about the border, and given the coronavirus situation, not discuss how, isn't it really important now that we have control at our ports of entry and that we know who's coming into the country and who's not? If you were somebody, and look, at some point, this is where we're also saying that the United States has finite resources. We do not have the resources to pay for everyone's stuff from all over the world. We do not have the resources to be the world's soup kitchen and healthcare ward. We don't have that. We can't do it, right? We know this. We're already seeing other countries that their health systems have been overwhelmed in a crisis. Now, if you were in the midst of what could be an outbreak, I don't know, in a country south of our border, pick any country, and you knew that America's border was porous, and that if you got here, you'd be able to count on world-class medical care given to you free of charge, that might be a big incentive. But keep in mind that we already, with the people that are here in this country, are very worried about having the surge capacity in hospitals to deal with the increase in the, if we have a sudden massive increase in the number of infected people in this country, having that surge capacity is something that we may not have. We don't really have right now. We'd have to work at it. Very interesting today, I heard in the conversation over masks, they have the N95 masks with the respirators that they can use for medical purposes, but also the ones that are industrial grade, I think, or for commercial activity. People use for industrial purposes, where you have sometimes very noxious chemicals and things that can have gases that are a big concern for health reasons. They can change the designation, just change the regulation around this, and then you'd have millions more masks immediately that would be able to be used. This is where government actually gets in the way sometimes. Apparently the masks for the industrial use are just as effective as I don't know that. That's what I saw today. I think it was Kevin McCarthy of the Congress saying that. So there are things that need to be done here, but we also need a secure border. And we also need travel bans. Isn't it so interesting that the Trump administration came in and established the right, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, established the right to be able to, for a national security emergency, ban different countries from entering the United States, that the left fought this tooth and nail. There were protests. People were showing up protesting in airports, that we were told this was an evil policy, a racist policy. And now, if you're looking at what we have done right so far in this country to deal with the outbreak of Wuhan virus, it has been the single most important decision probably that Trump has made of all decisions so far. Using that authority that if the left had had its way, the president would not have even had. And just the entire focus on our border and having a more secure border is clearly something that, the left doesn't want. And now we see this and understand that it is important for not just, immigration is not just an issue about economics. It's not just a cultural and political issue. Immigration is also it is a true national security issue, because, and this is really what the conversation with David before started to get into, that this is not an economic issue. We're not in a financial crisis. We are in a disease pandemic, right? We are really under attack. We are facing an invasion by a pathogen. And this is where federal government response has to be robust, and where you see the authority that we give to the government to protect us needs to be used properly. But part of that is establishing control over our borders, who comes and who goes. There are real national security implications that immigration touches on. That's not just a talking point that Republicans throw out there. And I do think it's noteworthy that the travel ban authority that the president had to go all the way to Supreme Court to assert, that travel ban authority was something that was challenged very much by the left, and that they were against him on this. And it may be the one thing, if we get out of this without having a catastrophic surge in cases, people are going to look back at the decision to limit those flights and say, wow, that might have saved a lot of lives.
Just over a week ago, many of the pundits declared that this candidacy was dead. Now we're very much alive. We're going to bring this nation together. We're regenerating a Democratic base. It's more than a comeback, in my view, our campaign. It's a comeback for the soul of this nation. And there's a place in our campaign for each of you. And I want to thank Bernie Sanders and his supporters for their tireless energy and their passion. We share a common goal, and together we'll defeat Donald Trump. We'll defeat him together.
We'll see. I was talking to you before about how this is Trump in wartime presidency mode, and that is definitely what's going on. But you also have to understand that this is effectively the election. I believe the election, for all intents and purposes, will be decided in the minds of the American people within the next 60 days. This is it. Now, if you told me right now that we could have, 0 casualties from this, and and there would be a Biden presidency, guess what? I'd say, well, we got a President Biden coming in. The single most important thing here, no question, is that this is dealt with properly by the government. Now, of course, if the Trump administration were now we already have casualties, I know that, but I'm just saying theoretically, the most important thing, I'm just trying to focus on what matters. The most important thing is that we have a strong government and collective and individual response to this. This is really on everybody. I really hope that people that have a bad cough and they have the symptoms don't get on the subway. Like, don't do these. This is all very important. Don't do the things you're told not to do. Protect the people around you. Stay home. I think it's a 14-day quarantine is what they're recommending for people. So, there are very real reasons here for optimism, but there's also reasons to be on high alert about what the future is going to hold here. But the political implications of this are quite clear, meaning that we're going to be able to assess how this was done, how well this was done. And, I just wish that the Democrats and the left that are using this as a weapon to attack Trump all the time would trust in the American people's judgment. If this thing is a catastrophe and the Trump administration is held to account for it, they'll be held to account in the fall as well. I mean, this is something that no one's going to forget. And I think that this is where we see how capable Trump really is. He's being tested. Everyone always says, administrations are tested by different things. Administrations are tested. This is Trump's test right now. I think he is up to it. The other side of this is that they keep telling us that Biden is up to it, and to that, I have questions. I have questions. Here is Biden's spokesperson, Kate Bedingfield, on why is it that Joe Biden drifts off and sounds like he's on seriously, it sounds like he's in some other universe sometimes. Here's what she said, play 14.
Is Joe Biden fit to be commander-in-chief? How do you answer that?
I have to say, this is a disgusting smear tactic. And this kind of thing is exactly why people want Joe Biden to be president. This kind of false, misleading, basically conspiracy theory that,
well, hang on. How is it a smear? Hang on. I'll let you talk, but hang on. How is it a smear tactic to ask you about a video where the vice president, in his own words, struggles to complete a sentence? How is that a smear tactic?
Ed, respectfully, how many times have you struggled to complete a sentence on air?
I'm sure it's happened many times.
That's ridiculous.
Okay,
of course. Let's roll the tape.
Well, going after the host, huh? No, I've watched a lot of Ed Henry, actually, and I've never looked at Ed Henry in a moment where he knows he's being televised, where he knows. I've looked at many hosts on TV, And never have I thought, wow, does that person have failing mental faculties? And I do think that you can say with Joe Biden sometimes that is an earnest conclusion you could come to. And the health of the commander-in-chief is a real consideration. We know they've been talking about this with Trump all along. They've been going after Trump, members of the press, for being overweight. They say that's a problem, and of course mostly so they can just mock him because they absolutely despise him. But they say that his weight itself is a problem because it indicates that he could have other sudden health problems. He could have a heart attack or could have any number of these different things that happen. Look, I don't think that Joe Biden is more competent than Donald Trump in a crisis. And that's really what this is going to come down to. That's going to be a key question that's asked here. I don't think that there's any reason to believe that's the case. But I also want more than anything this to pass and for us to get the other side of this. And I do think, by the way, we're going to get there. I know today's been a little bit of a gloomy day in America and for the world, folks. I mean, we're in a rough spot right now. There's no question about it. The economy is absolutely in free fall. Not because we have a bad economy, but because people are staying home because we're under assault by this disease. But, I also think back to at the end of last year, and I'll tell you this, I sat down with my mom, and I remember for the first time in a really long time, I just was able to say, things are really good. Things are really good in my life. I was happy, and things were going well, and, the show is doing really well, and I get to hang out with producer Mark every day. Things were just good in life. And I remember I said it not because I thought it was going to continue, but because I knew that it wouldn't. I knew that there would be challenges. I knew there would be things on the horizon, and not just for me, but what was the next big challenge? We've had 9/11, we've had the financial crisis. We were due for something. And I never liked to think that way, but I knew it was there. And that's where we are right now. We are in the midst of our once-in-a-decade major challenge as a country, as a nation, as a people. And I am still very confident in our ability. I mean, if I had more money to invest in the stock market, I've already invested a lot. And I've invested and I've lost a lot of money in the last month. And I'm going to keep, but now I shouldn't say I've lost money. I've invested. I believe that those investments will be made whole in time as the economy recovers. But you know what? Even if it doesn't, I vote in favor of America. I vote to support America. I want to keep businesses' stocks up. I want to do what what little I can to show that I have faith in this place, because I do. We have been through worse. We have been through more. We're going to get through this one too. So today is a day where we can all, let it out a little bit, shake it off a little bit for sure. There's a understandable unease that I'm sure many of you feel. I know that I felt it in the last 24 hours, more than I have so far. But I also think we'll wake up tomorrow, it'll be a new day, and we'll feel like, all right, it's not over, but we're in the fight, and we're going to win the fight.
It's time for roll call.
All right, everybody. Like I was saying, we're going to get through. I want to hear from all of you. And I did. This is not just me talking. This is true. I talked to producer Mark about this yesterday. We're trying to find out, although right now we got bigger concerns, obviously, but we are trying to get to a place where we can take your phone calls as voicemails so that we can play them on the air and we can hear from all of you. I want to hear some of your voices. So we're working on that. It's not going to be right away because, like I said, we've got some contingency plan going on here to keep the Freedom Hut firing no matter what, right? But we'll get this going at some point.
Yeah, we have to figure out how to stay on the air in case we have to stay home. So.
Yeah, I mean, the big concern for us is if they shut down the subway here in New York because they just realized that it's the single worst transmission node in the whole city, which it probably is. I spent a lot of time on that subway. That we can't get to work, and so that's why we have to set up the contingency plans. But anyway, we thought about this. We are going to make moves on it, and we got to kind of see what's going on from there. That's my way of saying, team, cheer me up. Let's get a lot of messages. I want to hear from a lot of you the next, few weeks, okay? Especially a lot of first-timers who haven't written in before. It's very easy. You're just on Facebook. I'm sure you're on Facebook sometimes. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. Also on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. You can send me messages on Instagram if you want. Buck Sexton on Instagram. That's an easy way to do it. And if you want to email, if you'd like to kick it a little more old school, it's very easy. TeamBuck@iHeartMedia, the company we work for. It's a huge company. iHeartMedia.com. What's up?
I'd like to stress, shorten your messages, people. I get some really long messages, and I can't put them on the air because I can't have Buck reading for 5 minutes per message.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say this: if we read everything that comes in, if you want us to be able to put it on air, it's got to be like 300 words, 400 words or less.
Like
I mean,
2 paragraphs max.
2 paragraphs is really 1 paragraph is a sweet spot. 2 paragraphs is fine. Beyond that, we're not going to be able to read it on the air because it's too long and we got too many messages to get to. So I would say, the optimal message is, 100 words maybe, 50 to or 1 line that's like, Buck and Mark, you are awesome. You keep me safe and warm at night.
Think of it like if you're calling into the show when we took calls.
Yeah.
A sentence or 2 that's really good. Your best stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, otherwise you're going to be in the penalty box of the producer Mark. Let's see. Chance. Producer Mark, does a supposed woman who had Buck watch Dirty Dancing exist? Or does she exist in the same way Adam Schiff's whistleblower, in name only and just for the purpose of the story? I will say, who met her actually was producer Jeff on the WOR show.
Huh.
She came by. She wanted to meet the famous producer Mark, but producer Mark was not here because he has a wife and a life.
Yes.
And finishes the show earlier. So yeah. So producer Jeff.
So producer Jeff knows that she exists.
Producer Jeff knows that there is a lady that exists who the Buck is dating. So that's a thing. So yeah. Although
I'm glad somebody has seen her.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm glad that otherwise I'd just be sitting here like, I promise she exists. She's totally real. She's totally real.
You have a doll in your apartment that you make cookies with.
Actually, I'm going to tell you this, man. I was thinking about this. I almost, like a week or 2 ago, I've ramped up my as much as I can my reading lately. I mean, not that I read all day for work to do the show, but my not work reading. Sure. My reading just books that I want to read for fun. And I was thinking I could do that, or I could get a PlayStation 4. I was so close.
I mean,
to getting
pretty cheap right now too.
Yeah,
PS5's coming out soon enough.
Yeah, I was so close to getting a PS4. Which I got to tell you, given the whole social distancing, self-quarantining situation that's playing out all over the world, I don't know. Amazon still delivers, right? I might have to get a PlayStation.
If there's a GameStop near you.
If I can't go out of my apartment for a while, that's really going to be helpful.
The best thing is nowadays, you don't even need to leave the house to get new games. You can just download them, right?
Yeah.
I don't even bother going to the store anymore.
Look, as long as the food is still on the shelves, and as long as we've got electricity and internet, we can get through some pretty widespread social distancing and self-containment for a while.
It could be a storm or something. You could have no power, no internet, no anything. So this is actually better.
Yeah, I mean that's being without power. I will say that day, I know they got the power on really quickly, but that day after Hurricane Sandy, when I was walking around and all these people didn't have power, it's a real shock. Or not a shock, as the case may be, but you know what I mean. It's really something that surprises you when you go to plug in your phone into the wall socket and you realize, oh, that's right, I'm in the dark, and this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
So,
and you were lucky that it was only a little bit of time.
Yeah, that was short, but yeah. No, so producer Mark is gonna have to take my word for it for now, but we will bring the mystery mystery lady by at some point during the day. The problem is she has a job. And so she's here during the day. She works.
You didn't get an unemployed girlfriend?
Not yet, no.
Jeez.
Nope. All right. So we'll see. Well, and we may have more. We may have more information. I'm going to dole out that information slowly. We're going to hold back on any details about Buck's love life.
I don't even know the details.
Yeah, he doesn't even know anything yet until like the country is out of this. That'll be like when it's springtime and we're all feeling better and we're past this scariness of this disease. That's when that's when I think I'll tell you guys the stories. Bonnie writes, "Hey, Buck, love your show. Keep up the good work. Just wanted to say something here. In a crisis, you don't change leadership, right? FDR served 16 years. He's the only president who served 2 8-year terms back to back. So hopefully this will stand for the 2020 election. If all this virus keeps going on, this will be a crisis if it keeps going on. Look, they're gonna use this. Understand this, that they're definitely going to do everything that they can to make sure that this is used against Donald Trump so he does not get to stay as president. They're going to do everything they can to get him out of office. So, yeah. Yep, FDR served 4 terms as U.S. president. Let's see here. Rusty. Hey, Buck, OSS here. I want to tell you about my experience with cruises. Don't knock it until you try it. All right, Rusty. Well, I'm glad that you've had good cruise experiences. I was adamantly opposed to going on a first cruise in 2018, but my lovely wife forced me, and I've been hooked ever since. I'm a bit of a germaphobe, but love cruising, and I just practice good personal hygiene while on board. P.S. I'm with producer Mark. Marvel movies are great, and these movies I can actually watch with my young ones, shields high. So basically, he's telling me I'm wrong about everything.
That was a great email all around.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's apparently your favorite email of the day. Yeah. Producer Mark is awesome and right, and cruises are good, Buck, you're wrong.
I mean, it's to each their own, but I personally enjoy cruises, and so do a lot of people.
Where did you go on your cruise again?
It was 2 years ago. It was Bahamas and a couple other places. I don't remember.
How long do you dock and spend on the land? That's what I know. And how do you avoid getting left behind?
Well, they tell you what time the boat's leaving, and if you don't get back... Like, there's actually people who get on the boat early and then go watch over the railings to watch the people sprinting down the dock so they don't miss the boat.
Oh, that actually people get close to missing the boat?
Oh, yeah, because they're stupid and they go get drunk on shore, one of the bars, and they don't realize it and they don't realize what time it is.
And I'm guessing they don't send like a little special helicopter for you. Like, that's kind of the end of your cruise.
You have to make your own way. You have to go meet the boat. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Wow. Okay. That's a thing that happened. But how many hours is it usually you go into?
I mean,
is it like a whole day?
That one we ended up skipping a stop. So we were in Nassau, Bahamas for 2 days. But usually it's like 8 to 10 hours.
You know, I actually hear the cruise ships that dock in New York from my apartment. I can hear the horns and stuff.
That's where we went out of New York.
Oh, yeah.
From Norwegian cruise.
Yeah, there are cruise ships there, yeah. Look, you know, I feel bad for the cruise industry because I think I'm sure there's, you know, tons of great people that work in it and they've given a lot of people a lot of joy over the years and everything else. And I mean, no one's going on cruises right now.
Oh yeah, right now I would never go on a cruise.
No, but also think about, I mean, the economic damage must be.
I have one booked for December. I'm hoping that still happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I've already got something on the books for end of this year, but it's not a cruise, but you know, I'm hoping. Although I did look at airline tickets. I was wondering. I was like, the airline tickets are super expensive still.
Oh, really? I've seen some deals.
Well, there are now, depending on where. But this was for December. They're not going to give you a deal now for December. They're figuring, you know, they're using the algorithms. You only get a deal if you get on a plane right now.
Sure.
Different deal. Wayne. Hey, Buck. This morning, some liberal who works in my shop was talking about how much Trump stinks. I said, what exactly stinks about Trump or what he's done? He said, Mexico isn't paying for the wall like he promised. I said, that's it? That's all you got? Orange man bad? I laughed. Then said, you know, Mexico is paying for the wall, and China and whomever else we have tariffs with. Tariffs equals tax dollars, equals military budget, equals wall is being built. I never saw him turn so red, shields high. Well, Wayne, you were very amusing and obviously good on your feet in a debate. Just don't make the libs too angry because they could cry or maybe they'll even try to like scratch your eyes out or something. So just be careful. Don't upset the libs too much, Wayne. All right, there are limits to the upsetting of the libs. Gina, hi again, Buck. Heard you saying people were complaining about your stance on some of James O'Keefe's recent undercovers. I completely agree. I am reminded of 1 year or so ago where he actually planted false info to get the scoop. The news agency actually did their research and declined to press forward. Honestly, it degraded some of his subsequent pieces in my mind. It took a minute to get back on board. We need people like James, but the stories he needs to break need to be earth-shattering revelations, not mediocre, yeah, we know, tell us something new. Shields high. Yeah, Gina, that's what I mean. I mean, you know, I can get any number of people who work for, you know, I could, maybe not me because I know who I am now, but you go ask anybody at CNN if you approach them in a social setting and get them a little drunk and be like, you know, what do you think what's going on over there? They'll be like, yeah, you know, we're not fair to Trump and we don't. A lot of them would probably say that, you know, if they're lower level people. I mean, the anchors wouldn't because they know that they've got to be all careful, right? But lower level people would say that. You want to get them fired? What do you think that's going to do? What's the point? We already know what's going on over there. There's no revelation. So I understand people really want to think that like James O'Keefe is always sticking it to the libs, and sometimes he does, but sometimes he's wrong or he overshoots or he misses, just like all the rest of us. So calling balls and strikes, folks, is what we do here in the hut. James, great name. Chuck Schumer is an activist using his Senate seat to be an activist. Schumer does not care what he says. He's using the virus and calling President Trump incompetent to put fear in America and the American people. Chuck Schumer is a fearmonger and attacking President Trump because he has hate towards conservatives and Trump. Shields high from WGY up in Albany. James, thanks for writing in, man. Yeah, I think Chuck Schumer is being really gross about this whole virus situation. I do not think he's being helpful. I do not think he's being honest. And I think that you're seeing the character of some of these leaders in a way that we should all be very mindful of. We should remember. We should know that this is what we're dealing with. Here we go. Chopper. Every time I see that, I think, get to the chopper. That's a different kind of chopper, though. Buck, it won't do any good now, but Charmin is sold out. Oh, because Charmin is sold out. But when supply is restored, give the Charmin Forever a go. Each roll lasts roughly 6 weeks, and it's wonderful to virtually never run out. Wow, I'm getting TP recommendations now from the audience, producer.
There were a lot of them. Some suggested bidets.
Oh, man.
But I could never do the Forever roll. I don't think I have room in the bathroom for that.
Yeah, it's a big roll. It's got to be a big roll.
It's a huge roll, yeah. And they have to give you a special holder for it.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Yeah, it's too much. I'm okay with just switching
But then it would stop me and my wife arguing about who should change the
Well, I was going to say, I know what I do, though. So I've got the toilet paper holder, and then I always keep the extra on top of the actual toilet, like, where the...
Yeah.
And I just use the extra all the time so that if anyone comes over, a guest or anything, we always have a brand new roll that I never use that is actually in the holder that looks nice, and I just use the one that's above the toilet.
Yeah,
I think that's the way to go.
Usually the toilet paper
and also
roll...
that means the nice pretty one that never touches my emergency in case I forget. You know what I mean?
Smart.
Yeah.
Usually our toilet paper is on the sink, like on the counter, because none of us bother to change it. Like we run out of the one on the roll when one of us actually puts it on the holder, and then
it does remind me of that movie The Demolition Man with Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone, where they talk about the 3 seashells and you never find out how to use them, but that's in place of toilet paper, and they think it's so funny that Stallone comes from an era in which they used wads of paper for that purpose. And we live in a very advanced society now. I feel like we probably could up our game on this a little bit. You
want innovations in toilet paper?
Well, I mean, something better than toilet paper.
I mean, wouldn't that be what a bidet is?
Yeah, but, that's a whole other thing. Don't you need a towel then afterwards?
I think so. And actually, some in Japan have ones that then warm your butt.
This is what I mean. Japan has, butt cleaning and butt warming instead of wiping, and, that's advanced stuff.
That actually creeps me out a little bit because it's public toilets they have those in, and, wouldn't that get dirty?
I don't know. We're going deep on this one. Larry, hey, Buck, during the early part of your show, I heard AOC bleating about the irreversible nature of climate change and that we should be paying attention to it, whatever that's supposed to mean. I have one simple question for AOC and her ilk. If climate change is irreversible, which of course it is, why in the world are some people proposing that we throw unspeakable amounts of money while at the same time devoting unknown numbers of man-hours to dealing with the worldwide disruptions that some sort of pointless spending will cause economically and otherwise? If something is admittedly irreversible, wouldn't it make it a heck of a lot more sense to maximize our efforts toward preparing for it? It almost makes one think that rather than a genuinely imminent crisis, what we're actually dealing with is an agenda to grab and hoard as much power as possible in an effort to have complete control of the unwashed masses. That's just crazy, though, right? Shields high, Buck, and to Producer Mark. Producer Mark says to you too, buddy, Larry. And yeah, the climate change stuff is nuts. And shouldn't we be just take a moment here? I think it's fair that we take a step back and say, wow, maybe the scientific community, instead of allowing for the constant browbeating and lectures over climate change, which is not a threat, maybe they had more important things to focus on. Maybe there were other areas. Now, I'm not saying more. You could do this to anybody, right? Oh, how could you talk about that when people are starving in some far-off country? No. I mean the scientific community. We always hear about scientists and climate change. Why have we not been hearing in recent years about pandemics and pandemic preparedness? That's the real question. It is a real question, at least. Michael, hey, Buck, I grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood, so I know many very tough individuals. They all have one thing in common. They don't know how they don't go around saying how tough they are, constantly challenging people to fights like Biden does. Joe reminds me of the guy that's always running his mouth but can't actually back it up. I know a few of those guys too. Shields high. Yeah, Michael, I hear you. Biden seems to have a chip on his shoulder about all this stuff. And then Andrew writes, Buck, Eddie Murphy's greatest two movies have to be Coming to America and or Trading Places. Are you familiar with the tie between those movies? When Hakeem meets the two homeless guys in the street, he gives them a bag of cash. Movies were so much better back then. Classics. Yes, I'm familiar with both those movies as well as the tie-in. Everybody, please, stay calm, stay safe, stay sound. Hold your loved ones close. Listen to the authorities as much as you can about keeping yourself safe on this one. We'll get through. We will be together on this, and we will keep our shields high.